There's no denying that The Last of Us is one of the best games of all time, with some of the strongest narrative threads, bleak environments, realistic character animations, excellent sound design, solid survival horror gameplay, and one of the best video game endings of all time. I'm not here to rehash the brilliance behind Naughty Dog's vision that came out in 2013 for the PlayStation 3 and remastered for the PlayStation 4 in 2014. I just want to report why I think this PlayStation 5 remake makes The Last of Us Part 1 one of the best looking games of this new generation so far. If you haven't been able to tell already, this is a review for The Last of Us Part 1. If you don't know me, my name's Delilah, aka ASSASSINA-san. Welcome back to my channel, where I typically review games, do let's plays, or react to video game conferences. So if you like that, I would really appreciate a subscription, a thumbs up, or a comment if you want to chat with me about this video. The PS4 remastered version of this game held up really well when I played it fairly recently to prepare for The Last of Us Part 2. When they announced the PS5 remake, I was confused as to why they would put resources into a game that was already pretty solid. It's not like Demon's Souls, Final Fantasy VII, Resident Evil 2, or even Shadow of the Colossus that are antiquated enough to justify a remake. I was of the mind that this was a cash grab and another way for Neil Druckmann to stroke the success of his own product yet again. A $70 price point just added insult to injury, especially considering the PS4 remastered version already gave players the entire package, including the game, the Left Behind DLC, and the Factions multiplayer. But after playing the remake and experiencing the rebuilding of The Last of Us from the ground up for the PS5 firsthand, I changed my perspective. There was so much care added to make one of the best games ever made even better. They somehow added details to make everything feel more realistic than it already was. I was genuinely surprised at how quickly I changed my tone. The most notable changes are the combat animations. I would aim over cover and see dust particles in the air. Once I shot my gun, a swirl of smoke came out of the muzzle and slowly dissipated around me. If I shot an enemy in the arm, I would see a puncture wound on their flesh exactly where I shot. If I shot the neck, a stream of blood spewed out of the throat and left a puddle of blood on the ground. A perfect headshot with a shotgun caused a chunk of their head to fly right off. I found myself having fun experimenting with different weapons and on different parts of the enemy's body. These death animations are some of the best I've ever seen in a video game, period. There's overall a lot of environmental and character animation details that were brought up to par with The Last of Us Part 2. For example, the detailed in-game facial expressions when Joel or Ellie are stealth killing an enemy. They even brought in the highly detailed workbench upgrades where every modification had a distinct animation. The details of the infected looked really graphic too, including being able to see the nipples of a female clicker. The year The Last of Us Part 2 released, it was given so many awards for accessibility, and all of those accessibility features were added to The Last of Us Part 1. And for you trophy hunters, if you want to get through this platinum easily, you can go ahead and add gameplay modifiers such as unlimited ammo. Some of the more subtle details that didn't go unnoticed to me are the footprints in the snow, sand, and mud. When Joel, Ellie, Harry, and Sam are on the beach right before entering the sewers, I was able to make a heart in the mud with Joel's footprints, and those prints stood out there for the entirety of my time in that area. When Joel and Tommy are searching for a runaway Ellie, it was much easier to know where to go because you could clearly see the prints of her horse's hoofs on the ground. Even during the winter chapter, tracking the deer's Ellie was so much easier because of the footprints and the blood left on the ground after a successful arrow shot. It was really cool to see how the blood on the ground was a deep red after the deer was pierced by an arrow, and as it runs away further and the bleeding stops, the blood on the snow becomes a lighter pink. There are so many little details to admire, and they undoubtedly show a lot of love and care for this remake. There's so many more subtle details that go beyond just footprints and bloodstains. Smoke bomb and explosive animations are really intense. I love watching a smoke cloud be so thick that I genuinely could not see, and then it slowly dissipated. Whenever Joel got wet, his jeans would darken and his skin would become more glossy. In Billstown, the store awnings flapped pretty realistically in the wind, yet the most important thing for me was the ability to break every car window, which led to about 30 minutes of gameplay of me doing just that. The environments had a wealth of new additions. The lighting changes made fires look more realistic and entering areas infested with spores more toxic. The attention to detail is outstanding, from the litter on the floor to adding an entire interface to Joel's cell phone when Sarah was reading messages from her Uncle Tommy. I even got to see how much Joel weighed when he stood on top of a scale in one of the bathrooms. The added care to the environments made the initial cinematic way more immersive than I remember it being. Mind you, this is a cutscene that made me cry every single time I played it, without fail. I didn't notice anything that stood out about the DualSense haptic implementation animation, but the 3D audio is fantastic. Hearing the groaning and clicking intensify as you sneak in closer to a clicker or when you activate listening mode is really creepy. The sound design was already good, but the 3D audio is on a whole other level. Truthfully, everything I'm describing about the game made me understand why the budget for the remake justified a $70 price point. It's genuinely one of the best looking PS5 games, up there with Horizon Forbidden West and Demon's Souls. However, you won't be getting any gameplay or story overhaul. It is an outstanding reskin akin to the Demon's Souls and Shadow of the Colossus remakes. For this reason, I totally don't blame people for waiting until the price drops, especially for those who have already played the original game. If you haven't played it before, this is undoubtedly the best version of this game. My skepticism was quickly put to rest after experiencing The Last of Us Part 1. No longer do I view this as a cash grab, but instead I see it as a way for Naughty Dog to take their baby and nurture it to be the best version of itself. So that's it, that's my review of The Last of Us Part 1. I would love to know in the comments any details that you noticed that maybe I left out. Clearly this review is just highlighting the details that I noticed when I played the remake, but if you noticed anything that I left out, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Or maybe you're one of those people that you're really turned off at the $70 price point and you're gonna wait for a price drop, or maybe you're not gonna bother with this at all. I want to hear from you too. If you found this review at all helpful, I would appreciate a like and a subscription, but if not, I really appreciate you listening in and giving me a chance. And the most important thing, as always, is that you take care of yourselves and each other.